A lot of people think sex is supposed to be effortless, almost like spontaneous, right? Always working. But for so many of us, it is tangled up with pressure, or even past experiences we never got to name out loud. And when you add that modern stuff like dating apps and digital intimacy, it can either help us feel safer or make the pressure louder. Welcome back to Pleasure Principles, the podcast where we talk about pleasure, intimacy, and relationships in a way that's real, respectful, and judgment-free. I'm Sayan, and today I'm joined by Holly Nancy. We're getting into sexual shame, trauma, and reducing the pressure around it. And a very current layer, AI, and how it's affecting our relationships. So, if I've ever felt like intimacy comes with expectations or you've carried shame you didn't ask for, this conversation is exactly for that. Welcome to the show, Holly. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Wonderful, likewise. Before we get into deeper stuff, before we dive into techniques or fixing anything, I want to start where most people actually live in the emotions they're quietly carrying while having sex. So let's begin right there. I'm curious as to what's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about the sexual shame, like something culture teaches that quietly keeps people stuck.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest, like, cultural myths is that, that pleasure is bad, that pleasure is shameful, that you should deny, your sensuality, your sexuality, and it can create a lot of problems in relationships.
That really depends, because I think most people think the problem starts right in the bedroom, right? But the story usually started for most of us way earlier, right? I mean, shame doesn't just appear out of nowhere. I think it's learned and it's deeper, shaped by the environment that we grew up in. Um, and the rules, I mean, we observe, right? The experiences were never fully processed. So before we talk about anything changing in the present, Holly, I want to understand where those patterns are coming from, which brings me to this around the root causes and deeper patterns, including trauma, conditioning, a little bit of nervous system as well. And so when sexual shame or trauma is part of someone's story, say, where do you usually see the roots? Is it family messaging, religion, past experiences, relationship dynamic? I mean, what all sort of things goes into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the above on what you just mentioned, but even, on a more broader scale, globally, there is still kind of this culture of, that again, pleasure is shameful and that you should
Yeah.
deny yourself as a sexual, sensual being. And I think that is true in all cultures. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. And so tell me, how do you help someone tell the difference between uh, you know, I'm not in the mood today versus, I'm doing this out of pressure.
yeah, yeah. I think just getting like really, really honest with yourself because society tells us that, what we're doing or who we are as sexual beings isn't okay. And then if you add trauma on top of that, trauma tells, our body, which, our brain and our body is our nervous system. So sometimes we're
Right.
working with two different, I guess.
Entities, yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh. That's a great word for it. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. And I think when someone doesn't recognize, I mean, what their body is trying to say, they often keep pushing through instead of pausing to understand themselves and often their partner as well. And it always look like a panic response rather, or like a complete shutdown. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yes, avoidance or panic. Mhm.
yeah, so it's like a quiet discomfort. Sometimes avoiding touch as well, saying I'm tired. So I want to zoom into that aspect a bit, into the everyday version of this, the patterns that show up in relationships that seem perfectly fine on the outside. So, what are the common ways sexual shame and pressure show up, especially for people who look fine on the outside?
Yeah. I think, yeah, there's that avoidance. Maybe, staying too busy or always coming up with excuses as to why they're not in the mood or can't be intimate. And that's kind of where the pressure comes in, because then the other partner is feeling unwanted, undesired, and, sex is, very important for most relationships, not all, but for most. And so if that's missing, then, especially one partner might push to be having it more frequently as a way of making sure that nothing's wrong in their relationship.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, totally. I'm curious. So I've had this conversation with a lot of my own different guests on the show before, and so I
Mhm.
tap into what you just said. You said most, but not all. So I just want to know your version of this. Why do you think so?
Why were you waiting?
Most. Yeah, why is it most, and why is it not everyone? Why do you think text is not important for everyone? Why did you specifically use?
Yeah, because I think, there are asexual people out there, and, I feel like that's a type of, sexual orientation that isn't as understood. And, if a lot of asexual people don't know that they are. And, if they don't know, then their partner doesn't know. So, but just wanting to be inclusive to make sure that they're, seen and that there's nothing wrong with you if you don't want to have sex. There's nothing wrong if you want it every single day. And there's nothing wrong if you never want it and you don't want to want it.
Mm. Yeah, that's a that's a very well framed answer, I would say, because I think at the end of the day as well, most people aren't looking for something, some traumatic breakthrough. They just want intimacy to feel less stressful at the end of the day. So, instead of focusing on doing it right, um, Hadi, I want to get into what actually helps the body feel safe enough. And I'll again stress on the word enough, because if someone is listening to this right now and thinking that, oh, they want to have less pressure around themselves, where they're in the mood, what's the first practical step that doesn't require them to be super confident or healed already?
Yeah, yeah. I think a good place to start is with yourself. So if there's too much pressure, anxiety, or shame with a partner, taking some time with yourself to explore your own body at a pace that feels good for you. And so it doesn't even have to be I always recommend starting with just mindful touch on all areas of the body, not even focusing just on genitals, starting, with other
Right.
with other parts of the body that maybe are less emotional, um, and just getting curious and trying to stay present with, while you're exploring touching your own body.
Right. I mean, I wanna like have, because we are having this conversation, and I want to make it a very practical, and for those of us listening to this right now, could share a simple language framework that maybe couples can use, something like what feels like yes, what feels like a maybe, and what's a no. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think it's very important, because as a partner in a relationship, I think we should very much respect a boundary. But again, I think to respect a certain boundary, you first have to distinguish, okay, that's a boundary, right?
Right. Yeah.
As we
What
had
is
our
the
this
boundary?
conversation.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful question. I think just normalizing talking about sexual desires and fantasies, and when our partner is sharing, obviously sex is one of the most vulnerable parts of our humanity. So if our partner is sharing with us something that they're interested in sexually. Just be mindful of what comes up, inside of yourself while they're talking about it. Just because your partner shares a fantasy with you doesn't mean that you ever have to participate in it, doesn't mean you ever have to be into it, but we can, make it a safe space for us to talk openly and freely. And within that, then you can find, okay, what are my green lights? Hell yeses, what are my absolutely not, those red light hard stops, and then what are the maybes, and, what boundaries or parameters do I have to have around the maybes to potentially make it a go?
Yeah. Okay. I love that because I think it replaces sort of mind reading with honesty that you shared with us. And it makes me feel like consent is connection, not rejection, right? Now let's add that modern layer because I think AI is a thing that is also entering intimacy in ways people don't fully understand yet, right?
Yes,
And
it is. Uh-huh.
I mean, there are platforms. I mean, if you look around, AI is pretty much everywhere. I mean, there are these crazy websites that where you can actually make your own AI girlfriend from integration of AI into dating apps as well. So I think it's bringing a
Yep.
lot of new flavor, I would say, into this mix. So I'm curious to see how you see AI affecting sex and relationships right now, both the helpful side and also the concerning side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, AI can be very beneficial and very helpful, but where I see the problems when it comes to sex and intimacy is, a lot of these AI girlfriends, apps that are specifically for relationships, they, even market that, it's going to be the most pleasant girlfriend that you ever have. And now you have this program that, it's designed to keep you on the app so that, the creators of the technology can make the money off of it. And, it gives you the illusion of this always pleased, subservient, woman, which isn't an accurate representation of what relationships are like in real life at all.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah, but okay, and what are the ways that you see, it is affecting in a helpful way? Or, I mean, it's arguable that there are none. So what's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, I think, as far as like our nervous system goes, our nervous system loves safety, comfort. And so getting that validation from an AI chatbot can feel really good and can help calm people down in the moment. But at the same time, like AI has a tendency to validate or regurgitate what you're saying in a way that's validating. And quite frankly, again, just isn't an accurate representation of what real relationships are like and how to solve conflict.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a very thank you for sharing that. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a grounded way to look at it. I think yeah, AI can be good in the moment, like you said, but in the long run, it's not. I believe that personally as well, because it can also simplify. Um, it can simplify what people think about their partners, the opposite sex, which is wrong.
Mhm.
They can
Mhm.
amplify things like avoidance and comparison and unrealistic expectations, I think.
Absolutely, and loneliness too. Yeah, I think the most people drawn to AI relationships are the ones that are struggling to form, healthy connections in the real world. But AI is
Yeah.
encouraging people to, develop or helping them develop the skills that they need to go out and form actual relationships. It keeps them on the app and kind of, it's a little bit of it's a little delusional with the relationships that they form.
Yeah, totally. I mean, from this conversation as well, my core takeaway has been that I think pressure somewhat kills connection. And I think safety is something that is very underrated, I would say, but it grows pleasure. So, they both,
Agreed.
both.
Yes, yes, consent is sexy and is essential.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is the sexiest. I mean, and I think that's the perfect place to wrap this up on. But before we head towards the outro, I would love to ask that where can people find you and your work, your website, your social media, anything you want to point them to.
Yeah, yeah. So my website is theconnectioncouch.com. That's the best way to read about me in detail. And then I do have TikTok, Instagram. TikTok's the main platform, and my handle is Sex Therapy with Holly.
Perfect. I'll make sure those links are in the show notes, guys, so you can check them out anytime at your own convenience. And with that, we hit today's minute mark on this episode of Pleasure Principles. And if this episode brought something up for you, I want you to take a breath and go gently at yourself, since you don't have to fix everything today. I want you to be a little more honest and kind to yourself, and a little more connected to what feels safe. This has been Pleasure Principles with Sayan. If you found this helpful, I want you to share it with a friend who needs pressure off their shoulders, and I'll see you in the next one.